Holly Gibson, WS number 279128, and this is my evaluation interview. My role and performance within the pantomime of Aladdin was Princess Lotus's handmaiden, So Shy, who was also her best friend and sort of a motherly figure towards Princess Lotus, and the other character I played was an ensemble member. My biggest challenge within taking on the role of So Shy was I'd picked the position of a very upright, sturdy position for her, as she is a motherly figure, sort of authoritative towards Lotus. However, I was quite rigid in this at the start, and that was my biggest challenge, trying to get over this fixed position that I'd chosen, especially within certain scenes and the song, which was important to not only vocally portray how I'm feeling and how I want to talk to and direct address Princess Lotus, but I think physically I realised that I was very stern and rigid, so I needed to break out of that. And to tackle this, I went through the song with Princess Lotus, I went through it with Mia, but actually thinking about sort of the subtext of the song and what I'm saying to her and what this song means within the pantomime and how it fit along the story and how important it was for So Shy to be singing that to Lotus, and it just wasn't it wasn't appropriate for me to keep this position, as it's very guarded and kept very rigid, and I needed to portray to her not just vocally within the song but physically. And then my challenge within the ensemble was actually working as an ensemble and remembering the cues needed for all these reactions. The reactions were so important because I realised that the ensemble makes sort of the background of this piece. Without the background, old Peking would not come alive like it did. And so keeping up with these reactions and remembering the cues and remembering how important it was. So I went through my script, made sure I annotated every single reaction I had to make and what character that reaction was brought from, whether it was the Emperor or Aladdin, and remembering that some of these had a comedy element, so remembering to make these reactions over the top and big so that not only the adults but the children find it funny. So for inspiration, I looked at Julie Andrews' characters Mary Poppins and Maria from The Sound of Music, only because I thought that they had a very motherly figure about them within both these characters, but however they had a sort of authoritative tone towards the children, and I think that this is sort of the way that So Shy would address and talk to Lotus. Although she isn't her mother and they're probably of a similar age, we don't see Lotus's mother, and I feel that So Shy sort of fills that place of guiding her in the right direction. And Julie Andrews' characters really resonated, those two especially, with me. Not just the way they spoke to the children, but their mannerisms and their gestures, and they weren't patronising. They had a very kind nature about them, which I thought just related to So Shy a lot. So I took these sort of very iconic characters and their mannerisms and the way they did direct address the children and sort of implemented that into So Shy, giving her the kinder elements of the voice, and just remembering the relationship between Lotus and So Shy, and how she acted towards Lotus, and learning from this whole process. I have learned from this that within the rehearsal process and leading up to the show, it's so important to keep yourself healthy, because the rehearsal process was hard and it took a lot of time and concentration and focus, and you can't be concentrated and focused if you haven't eaten enough or you haven't drunk enough or you haven't got enough sleep. And I found this out very soon within the rehearsal process, that I couldn't lose hours of sleep. I needed to have these full hours of sleep, eat properly, have breakfast, little small things, always having a water bottle on me, refilling it as soon as it gets low, keeping healthy, not just for it needs to progress onto me as a performer throughout every performance, every rehearsal process. Keeping my sort of stamina and health up is really, really important. I also learnt about how important being adaptable is, and the professional standards that are needed from a performer, not having an attitude, just taking criticism and taking that and working on that, and no matter what changes, being adaptable to that and being adaptable to other performers and the director as well. A piece of feedback that stuck with me throughout the process relates to the challenge that I had. Lisa said that Soshai is, her position would be this, but she needs to convey emotion as well with her hands and her body, and this was specifically in the song. I was given feedback that I was very rigid within the song, and I just need to sort of let loose and relax a bit and just let her Soshai convey herself and convey myself to Lotus. So that stuck with me, which I then worked on and developed. And I think that's where the Julie Andrews characters came in as well, with this kind nature and just keeping in mind how I would address Lotus. In terms of the ensemble, I think as an ensemble